Okay, maybe I'll have to do it YouTube. And maybe it's Facebook is blocking me. So I don't know. Um, going on. I can't see anything over here. Um, whether I'm getting out good or bad. But let me try, and then I'll repost it on Facebook. Vietnam War. Will it ever get over? I thought we banned chemical wars after World War One, when they used all kind of bad chemicals like mustard gas and stuff. Even we did, which took sometimes days to kill people, sometimes hours of excruciating pain. But this ain't classified as chemical warfare, even though the chemical companies like DuPont was forced to make it and given 100% immunity to make it, as well as a couple other companies did too. They knew it was going to kill all life, especially forestation, all the way down to the ground. Overnight, I served as a truck driver, supply driver, first infantry, and then the AmeriCal after the first pulled out, 69 to 71. I met my wife there and married her. She was the manager of the mess hall in the first infantry. Never shot my gun. Too busy ducking and stepping on the gas because Agent Orange basically saved my life. They come right over top of us and spray. And the next morning, the enemy was pushed back a football field on either side of the road because there was nothing for them to hide behind anymore. Every bit of forestation was gone, grass, everything, down to the ground. And hitting a moving target at 100 yards with an RPG or mortar or anything else is very hard to do. It's even hard to shoot and hit a moving target because AKs aren't that accurate. The bullet wobbles down their barrel. So they come out wobbly, unlike the 16, which is extremely accurate because all the specs are so tight. But the AK kept firing. The M16 locked up all the time because the specs were too tight for it. But regardless of that, Nixon got an honorable non-aggression treaty with Ho Chi Minh in 72, 73, guaranteeing the right that South Vietnam could exist, have free elections, and people could go back and forth between North and South. He also stated that if the North ever attacked the South again, he'd be there and he wouldn't worry about the South. He'd go straight to Hanoi and take it over, blow it to smithereens. We exchanged our prisoners and we came home. Then the Democrats quit funding the war, but the Republicans were supporting it too. We were broke. We couldn't keep sending them bullets and spare parts and food and money, etc. And then they went one step farther with democratic rule, majority rule, outlawing any troops in Southeast Asia without like 75% of the Congress approval. That's why Ford couldn't do anything when Cambodia captured one of our Navy ships in the South China Sea down there off of Cambodia, Vietnam. I came home just like 2,600,000 estimated being in Vietnam. Within a few years, my cartridges in my knees, my rotator cuffs, my hips, my ankles started deteriorating so bad that arthritis got in. I was waking up at night in extreme pain. Within 10 years, all my teeth had rotted from the inside out, not from the gums up, not from the teeth down, but from the inside out. I started having other problems, like balance problems. I fell down, hurt my back at work. I thought I'd slipped on the wet floors, not realizing that that was the start of peripheral nephropathy. I've fallen many times where my nerves stop working in my legs and I go straight down. Or I drop stuff out of my hand because all of a sudden I no longer have a grip because my nerves stopped working. I experienced a heart attack within 15 years after coming home. But I don't want to describe the 100 things that's happened to me since I came home from Vietnam. And VA rejected me for 16 years, but gave me 6 months to live from 94 to 2010. And only backdated my check 2 years, 2.5 years, when they finally did approve it in 2010. They owe me over $500,000, maybe $750,000. But set that aside. My God, they rejected everybody. How could they? And in the world court, we gave Vietnam $630 billion in 1979 to treat their sick, as long as the lawsuit was sealed and the outside world, especially the USA, could not hear about it. Doctors from all around the world analyzed the different forms of Agent Orange and found over 30 diseases and cancers related to it. For the first 15 years, for the first 5 years after the war, 10 years after the war, there was hardly a death until the mid 80s. And then thousands upon thousands were dying weekly on both sides. My God, thousands on both sides were all of a sudden dying. Can I hear a bullet? Can I hear a bomb? I don't hear nothing. But they're dropping like flies. The Vietnamese and the American troops and civilian contractors. What's going on? In the 90s, thousands and thousands more died. Until finally 2002, after many, many lawsuits by the Vietnam Veterans of America and their lawyers, got like 3 or 4 things out of that 30 some things approved for disability benefits and medical health. Over 1 million veterans died. Millions of Vietnamese are dead. What's going on? My God. By the last decade, most Americans are not being exposed anymore like the Vietnamese. So we're only dying hundreds a week. The Vietnamese are still dying a lot, 10 times what we're dying a week, because they're still drinking the water over the years. Eating food off the ground, we poisoned to death. Estimated 2 million Americans are dead, 6 million Vietnamese. the deadliest war America's ever been in, for outside at least. But yet, Senator McCarthy last week on national news stated Vietnam was nothing, only 58,000 died. In the whole Vietnam War, 100,000 died of fentanyl overdose. The government keeps playing down the worst chemical warfare in the history of the world. 7 to 8 million people have died from Agent Orange. And look at the statistics. 85 to 90% of people who served in Vietnam are dead. "75 to 80% of the people that was in the military during the Vietnam War that didn't serve in Southeast Asia or Vietnam are still alive." Doesn't that make you think that something in Vietnam is killing us? And then the military don't want to acknowledge it. The Vietnam Veterans of America has tried to get our names listed in a book attached to the wall in Washington. That yes, 58,000 died in country in Vietnam. Over 2 million of us have died because of our service in Vietnam. And I'm not saying it's all Agent Orange, 99% Agent Orange, or maybe 95% Agent Orange. A lot of suicides, emotional problems. People came home drug addicted because they couldn't live with what they saw, so they turned to drugs and alcohol. What the military do and our government do? Dishonorable discharge. So they couldn't even get help for what the war caused their problem at the VA hospital or anything. Deny, deny, deny. I've lost over 100 people that were in Vietnam, most of which was married to Vietnamese women like me. My wife had a famous disease related to Agent Orange called small cell lung cancer. Tens of thousands of GIs have died from that. It's a very rare, extremely rare lung cancer unless you were exposed to Agent Orange. What do you think? This video seems to be working fine. It must be Facebook screwing me up, cutting me off, because I'm getting too popular now. I gotta get my camera set up in a few minutes and turn on record and record this off the screen of my computer. But what do you think? Should we be acknowledged as part of the Vietnam War and casualties of the Vietnam War? Hell yes! Every one of our names should be down there by the wall, not on the wall, but listed as a casualty of the war. You know, the government has for decades Vietnam, Desert Storm, Operation Freedom, Afghanistan, Iraqi Freedom, etc., Syria, ISIS. If you don't die in country, they don't list you as a casualty of that war. If you die a month or two later from your wounds and stuff from the war in some hospital in Germany or America, you're not listed as a casualty of the war. Why not? It started in the war. We got to take care of our troops. We got to acknowledge what caused their death. We lied to the American public. Why? Was we so determined to get a foothold in the Southeast Asia after France couldn't hold it that we had to poison our own people with the worst chemical warfare in the history of the world? We're spending $1 billion a year in Vietnam trying to clean up the major places we dumped it. I used to carry 55-gallon drums on the back of my Deuce and a half out to one bunker fire support base camps platoon size and help spray it with the pump-up sprayers the Army had in their small bunker line of barbed wire around to kill the vegetation. We need to have a national referendum and list every name of everybody that died as a result of serving in Vietnam, whether it's PTSD, drugs, alcohol, flashbacks, or actually being poisoned, which is the main cause of our death. They've been giving me 6 months to live since '94. And I keep inheriting more and more problems. But other problems have seemed to subsided somewhat. So, what do you think? This Memorial Day, if you're a veteran and you see another veteran, tell them thanks for having my back. All of you that donated to the DAV, the BFW, the American Legion, the BVA, or whatever, that has lawyers at the VA to fight for our rights to get benefits free of charge for us, is a worthwhile donation. All of you that gave and belong to the Vietnam Veterans of America since the mid to late 70s when it started, when I became a member, thank you for giving them enough money to fight for our memorials in Washington. We not only fought for the Vietnam Memorial, the Women's Memorial, the Korean Memorial, the World War II Memorial, the Martin Luther King Memorial. We set a trend of letting people be honored on our property. Our government's property is our property. And we need to honor people that sacrificed and stood up for what's right in this country, or went to a war thinking they were standing up for freedom, democracy, and the Bill of Rights for these countries we served in. We were noble. We believed the government that we were fighting for what's right, not just getting the defense contractors rich again, and not just trying to control that part of the world by force. Just like we've done in every country since. And now we're trying to get into another war because the defense contractors are just sitting idle. We got to get into war to make all our rich people richer and get all these donations to keep getting the same people reelected back into our governments, from our smallest to the biggest. But if you see another veteran, walk up, and if you're a little afraid of COVID-19, I'm not, but shake the guy's hand if he's willing and say, thank you for having my back. Not thank you for your service, not welcome home. It's way too late for that. But thank you for having my back. Because without all of us standing up, and getting what's rightfully due to us for our service. Acknowledgement, medical care, and a living wage where we can survive while we anguish in death. We deserve. God bless you all. And remember, no welcome home, no thank you for your service, but thank you for having my back, because the only people that had our back was our brother in arms here in America and in the wars we were in. And stand up for Desert Storm. 30 years later, the government still won't acknowledge all the deaths, all of the medical problems with breathing of 150,000 troops that came home from that war in Kuwait and Iraq. 150,000 troops from all walks of life, all parts of America. And the only thing they had in common was being called up as reservists, a National Guard, a Coast Guard member, Army Reserve, or whatever, and shipped over there to put Saddam Hussein back in his place out of Kuwait. And we say it didn't happen there. They should be listed as casualties of wars. Also, because they got sick in the war, came home sick, and passed on before their time because of that sickness they got. Was it chemical war, the oil fires, or what? We don't know. Because we don't want to look into it. We don't want to have to treat these people. We don't want to have to give them any kind of benefits to help them survive their illness and a little bit of comfort of not having to worry to eat or a house or housing. Vietnam Memorial Day is coming up. Thank God for Trump to have a national memorial for Vietnam veterans. He knew how many of us died. He knew how many of us are still suffering. So I've talked 22 minutes and this ain't cut me off. So I'm going to tape it and then put it on Facebook to my camera chip, download it into Facebook, and then I'll spread it like hell, and you all share it like hell. Let's get the word out. There's not many Vietnam veterans left. There's not many Desert Storm veterans left. That we need to have each other's back. We need to fight for what's right. We served our country honorably. We served it at the risk of our own life. And now that we're serving it being disease riddled because of our service, make the government pay and list our names in a book of 2,600,000 people, contractors, news people, and military personnel that's going to end up all being dead from their service in Vietnam. 2.5 million, I estimate, has been killed because they served in Vietnam. Good night, and pray for us. I have a lot of problems wrong with me. I found myself on the floor, low sugar from diabetes or another mild heart attack. I have internal hernia now because all I do is sit and my belly fat has grown over my intestines and pinching them like a hernia does. But they can't do anything because my high blood pressure, my heart arrhythmia, tumors all over my lungs, enlarged prostate, possible a lot of cancers, according to the CAT scan, in my lungs and prostate and other places. I've lived a long 6 months since 94, when VA first told me I had 6 months to live. But not healthy. Fighting off pain, fighting off everything, refusing to take any drugs, refusing to take any painkillers. I've been able to kill the pain in my mind right here. Mind control over my body to stop the pain most of the time. All you suffering out there, I'm praying for you that the end will be soon and we will not have any more pain.